When I was just 10 years old, my life changed forever. It was a cold night, the kind of night when the wind whispers secrets that no one should hear. My parents, or maybe they were just shadows disguised as them, took me to a place that seemed to exist outside of time. Since that day, I have never been the same. It was as if something inside me had been broken and replaced by a piece that didn't fit. There were nights when I woke up in panic, feeling the weight of invisible looks in the darkness. During the day, the feeling of being watched did not leave me. The memories of that moment were stuck in my mind, like a tape that keeps repeating itself, each detail sharper and more disturbing than the last. The innocence of my childhood had been stripped away, replaced by a constant fear of what I might have become. If you've ever felt like something has changed in you without explanation, stay with me until the end. You don't want to miss what happened and how it still haunts me. Don't forget to like, comment, and share this story. Perhaps, together, we can find an answer to the inexplicable. That morning, everything seemed normal. My father was sitting on the porch, smoking his pipe, and my mother was making coffee, as she did every day. But there's something in their eyes. A strange glow, something that shouldn't be there. Tonight we're going to a special place, my mom said with a smile that seemed glued to her face. You need to put on your best clothes. It was strange, but at 10 years old we don't question it. Childlike innocence is a shield that protects us from understanding danger, but it also leaves us vulnerable. I fully trusted the adults around me, believing that everything they did had a reason. Today, looking back, I realize how dangerous this blindness was. What seemed like just a different night was actually the beginning of something I had no ability to understand. If only he had asked questions, he might have avoided what was to come. Obey. At nightfall, they dressed me in a costume that seemed ceremonial. They told me it was for something important. When I asked where we were going, my mother just replied, "You'll understand when we get there." The journey was silent. The car traversed roads I had never seen before, each turn taking us deeper into a maze of darkness and mystery. We were placed in the center of the stone circle. Each child had a candle in his hand, and the flames flickered to the rhythm of a low, guttural song that echoed through the room. "You must participate," my father whispered in my ear. He stood behind me, his hands firmly on my shoulders. The man in the black robe raised his hands, and the ground seemed to shake. A hole opened up in the center of the circle, revealing something I can't describe. It was like looking into a living nightmare, something that shouldn't exist. I was forced to get closer. My candle was shaking in my hands, and I could feel the heat coming from that thing in the hole. When the candlelight touched the inside of it, I heard a sound I will never forget. A scream, but not human. Something much, much worse. After the ritual, something changed in me. As soon as the hole closed and the singing ceased, I was seized by an inexplicable sensation. It was as if my body was carrying a weight that didn't belong to me, something alien. My lungs burned with every breath, my skin tingled, and the mark on my wrist throbbed with pulsating pain. I looked around, hoping to see in the eyes of the other children something that might reflect what I felt, but their faces were empty, like wax dolls. A low, guttural voice whispered inside my mind, words in a language I didn't understand, but that somehow made sense. It was at that moment that I realized I had been changed in a way that could never be undone. A mark appeared on my wrist, something that looked like a spiral-shaped scar. I tried to hide it, but my mom said, "Don't worry, it's a gift. You were chosen." Chosen for what? I had no idea, but the nights were never the same. I began to have strange dreams, visions of places that did not exist. And worse, I began to hear voices. They whispered things I didn't want to understand. My body has also changed. I got stronger, faster, but there was a price. Each time I used this strange strength, I felt like I was losing a piece of myself. Years later, I tried to get away from it. For months, I had planned how to distance myself from that memory. But the mark on my wrist felt like a constant reminder. With each attempt, it was as if something invisible pulled me back, a link that could not be broken. At first, I tried to hide in big cities, blending in with the crowd, but the dreams followed me, like shadows growing in the corners of my mind. Afterwards, I sought complete isolation, going to a cabin in the middle of nowhere. But it was there in the silence that the voices were loudest. Every failure consumed me, and the emotional weight of living on the run left me on the brink of collapse. It was like carrying a curse that could not be abandoned. My parents never talked about that night again, as if it hadn't happened. But I knew something was coming. The mark on my wrist began to burn, and the dreams returned, more intense than ever. I decided to go back to the ritual site. Something pulled me there, like an invisible hand that pushed me toward the inevitable. When I arrived, the circle of stones was destroyed, but the hole was still there, pulsating with that same dark energy. It was then that I realized I couldn't run away. I was connected to that place in a way that I would never be able to break. And deep down I knew that this was just the beginning. Months after my return to the ritual site, I began to notice more profound changes. They were not just dreams or voices. Something inside me seemed to be growing. The voices that had once whispered now spoke with eerie clarity, guiding me to places I had never seen before, but that I somehow recognized. One night, as I examined the mark on my wrist under the dim light of the lamp, I realized that it was not just a scar. It was a map. Small lines and symbols began to glow, pulsing in sync with my heart. I felt an irresistible compulsion to follow the directions she indicated. That's how I found an old book hidden in the attic of my parents' house, wrapped in rags and fastened with rusty chains. When I touched the book, a wave of energy ran through my body, and a voice echoed in my mind. "You have started the cycle. Now he must finish it." The pages were filled with symbols similar to those of the stone circle. They were instructions, but also stories. I discovered that the ritual was part of something much bigger, an ancient pact made by past generations to protect humanity from something that inhabited the void. And me? I was the next guardian, chosen to carry the burden and prevent it from escaping. However, there was a price. Each guardian was slowly consumed by the void it swore to protect. This explained the changes in me, the gradual loss of who I was, and the emergence of something different. The mark on my wrist began to change. It was no longer just a map. It burned like living fire, pulsing with an energy that seemed to want to explode. The voices that had previously only whispered now shouted, demanding that I fulfill my role. Every step I took seemed to bring me closer to something inevitable, something I couldn't control. It was then that the forest called me again. It was not a sound, but a sensation, as if the surrounding trees had taken root inside me. The stone circle was in ruins, but something new had emerged. In the center, where the hole had once been, there was now a staircase that descended into the bowels of the earth. The energy emanating from there was overwhelming, and each step I went down made my body shudder. At the bottom I found a door. It was decorated with the same symbols as in the book, and as I touched it, I felt as if emptiness embraced me. There was no going back. It was my destiny. Beyond the door, there was a darkness so deep that it seemed to swallow the light. But in the middle of it, something pulsated. It was an entity, or perhaps just a manifestation of emptiness, but its presence was overwhelming. It had no form, but it was alive, conscious. And he talked to me. "You're back," she said, her voice like muffled thunder. "You're the next to carry the weight. But know, guardian, that this is only the beginning." The entity began to merge with me. It was a feeling of complete erasure, as if I was disappearing and being replaced. Every memory I had, every piece of who I was taken by her. But in the process, something new emerged. I was no longer just human. I was an extension of the void, the ultimate guardian. When I came back to the surface, the world looked different. Time had passed in a strange way, as if decades had condensed into seconds. The people around me didn't recognize me, and I barely recognized myself. The book, now etched in my mind, said that I had a choice: continue as a guardian or release the emptiness in the world. I knew the price of both options. Keeping the void contained meant my complete destruction over time. To set him free meant the destruction of everything. The choice was not really a choice, but an acceptance of the inevitable. Today, I feel the weight of emptiness growing in me. I know my existence is coming to an end, but I hope my story serves as a warning. Emptiness is eternal, and guardians like me are just passing moments in its infinite history. Do you believe in fate? If so, like, comment, and share. Perhaps your answers can help me understand what really happened that night. What about you? Have you ever experienced something that changed your life forever? Leave it in the comments. Who knows, maybe their stories can help us decipher the secrets that haunt us.